The federal government of Nigeria recently made the decision to remove universities from the Integrated Personnel and Payroll Information System, also known as IPPIS. This move has generated discussions, especially on the funding of the public university system. The liaison officer for the Congress of Nigerian University Academics, that's Aminu Isyaku, joins us now to discuss the recent policy change, its potential impact on the finances of universities, and the measures needed to elevate the standard of education in Nigeria. Thank you for joining us here on Newsday, Aminu.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure. Now, what do you make of this recent development regarding the IPPIS?
Well, thank you very much. We in the Congress of University Academics, CONUA, gladly welcomes this announcement by the federal government to exempt all tertiary institutions from the IPPIS payment platform. For us, it's a good development because we believe the universities actually suffered more under the software than the benefits that we also believe in CONUA. The software has assisted the federal government to improve on its payroll services. So we welcome it as a good development for Nigerian universities.
Right. Now, more recently, the National Association of Academic Technologists, that's NAAT, raised concerns that the removal of this IPPIS may lead to the government rescinding on its responsibilities to meet their financial obligations to tertiary institutions. They felt this development was met with mixed feelings. Do you feel their concerns are plausible?
We really do not have those concerns because even when we were on the previous payment platform, the IPPIS, we were still having issues with federal government regarding some of those payments, especially of our end academic allowances. But even under the IPPIS, we were having our salaries paid as at when due. And also under the IPPIS, when government in 2019 announced that universities must enroll under the IPPIS, we mobilized our members in CONUA to join the software. And since then, our payments of salaries have been steady. And we believe that the software even assisted the federal government to check all the inadequacies that existed in our universities regarding payroll. Government itself have complained that some of our tertiary institutions used to misappropriate monies meant for payroll to do certain other things within the university, and which is not permitted by governments. So that's why government actually forcefully, so to say, deployed the software so as to harmonize and integrate is federal employee payroll services under one single umbrella. And for us in CONUA, our problems were not that too much because our salaries used to come as at when due. The only thing is that we saw an increase in tax deduction, and government's explanation to that was that before we were not paying the right taxes, but the IPPIS was configured to deduct the right taxes. And also the software, we found it to be inadequate in observing the peculiarities that we have in the universities. You see, the universities are very peculiar in their setup. Day in, day out, we have lecturers moving out of the system, and also there are new establishments of departments and new programs and new universities. So the system is configured in the universities to allow for this immediate replacement of teaching staff when the need arises. But the IPPIS completely shut that out of the system. So that's why you hear a lot of complaints from vice chancellors that they could not recruit. And it's true, they couldn't recruit because they could not pay new staff. Before you can recruit a single staff, you have to go and get a number of clearances. from the head of service to all manner of clearance, accountant general, and the rest of it. But before, when grants were being paid to universities, it was easier for universities to do all these things. So for us in the Congress of University Academics, we believe this is also a good development for our tertiary institutions.
Oh, well said. And speaking of, good development for tertiary institutions, what further steps would you like to see from this administration to really show the commitment in revamping the education sector, in addition to this?
Yes, immediately what we want to see happen in the union is that by bringing back the other payment system or whatever it is that government now wants to introduce after removing IPPIS, we want to ensure that government is fully aware that there are excesses that the IPPIS was able to effectively address. One of those excesses is that government has realized that university lecturers used to have multiple places of work. So our system allows us to lecture in your primary university, and also at the same time, if there is a need on a visit basis in a nearby university, a lecturer can be allowed to go and visit in a maximum of 2 universities. But then you now see the system was abused. You see some of the lecturers visiting in more than 2 universities, thereby affecting their own primary assignment in their own primary university. So the IPPIS was able to check that. We now hope going forward that whichever system government want to introduce, it should also be able to check this multiplicity of work, because we believe that is stopping those universities from employing permanent lecturers because they are relying on half salaries that they are paying cheaply to other universities on a visit basis. And also we want to see going forward that promotion arrears that lecturers have been clamoring for now to be paid over the years, that the new payment system will address the issue of promotion arrears in due course of time, and also our end academic allowances. So for us in the union, like Nigerian people know that we are more about the welfare of our members than even about any other cause of agitation within the system. So we are more concerned on the welfare, so long as whichever payment system government want to adopt, if it will remit payments, salaries and allowances and promotion areas and the rest of those to our members, we are on board with it.
Right. Now, given some of the nuances that you've painted and, the consistent advocacy towards the autonomy of Nigerian universities, how ready are Nigerian tertiary institutions for autonomy?
The truth of the matter is the universities are not ready for full autonomy, and that's the truth. If you grant universities now full autonomy, you have to define it. Will it involve also financial autonomy, allowing each institution to generate funding for itself, pay its staff, do its overheads, and all the recurrent expenditures? If that's the case, then universities will be pushed to introduce certain amount of tuition, which Nigerian students may not be able to pay. So autonomy in the sense that it will allow universities to function within their act of establishment, empowering university councils to be more in charge of universities, including finances within the university. Allow universities to, as much as they can, design their course curricula that will reflect their individual strengths and their circumstances. That's an autonomy, and already I think now the NUC has given that with the new CC mass that allows NUC to bring 70% of the course contents to be taught in universities and 30% to individual universities. And also I think government has already given that autonomy for university councils to, appoint vice chancellors or rather sanction vice chancellors. That's also an autonomy. But I think what the dispute is is including financial autonomy. We are not ready for financial autonomy because our universities are not revenue-generating institutions, and so therefore we cannot really sustain ourselves by our revenue that we can generate. So as much as possible, federal government has to continue funding the universities, paying salaries, pensions, and also retirement benefits, and including overheads and capital projects in the universities.
Well, we certainly hear you. Now, if you can expand this beyond the tertiary institutions, according to the National Bureau of Statistics, educational institutions in the country paid 42% more in taxes by the third quarter of this year. Now, one of the issues is that this increase is causing it's the rising cost of education is starting to raise the concerns that we might have more out of school children sooner rather than later. Just wondering how you'd like to see this aspect tackled.
Are you mentioning about the issue of taxes?
Yes, the rising cost of education. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, rising cost of education. Yes, the rising cost of education really is of great concern to CONWA, because if you compare that with the present economic situation, you have on one hand subsidy removal, you have on the other hand the continuous weakening of the value of the naira and the purchasing power. You are gradually pushing Nigerians and especially poor students to the brink. And if the cost of education is not drastically brought down, what you will have is what you just suggested. Many more out-of-school children will be out there, and then you also have dropouts from the universities. And if you have that, then you can square that up with what you will expect to see in the country in terms of rising agitations and insecurity. But in CONWA, that's why we welcome the idea of the student loan scheme. We believe the student loan scheme will go a long way in addressing the issue of rising cost of education, because if parents and Nigerian students are being pushed to the brink because of the present economic realities, then why not embrace the student loan scheme, where federal government has now budgeted money to give to students on loan for them to finance their education, with the agreement that when they graduate, they will be able to pay back. Our concern, we have already shared that with the National Assembly when we present our memos. We believe the scheme should be expanded more to allow more students to enroll, and also the access to those loans should be softened a bit to allow indigent Nigerian students to be able to access it. So I think if we have the student loan fully functional, it will go a long way in addressing the issue of rising costs, because students now will have at least something to be able to pay for it, at least in the meantime.
Right now, still speaking to some of the new initiatives from the current administration with concerns to tertiary education, one of the debates that has been ongoing is the choice to create and establish new universities as opposed to investing, a certain amount of the budget into existing institutions. What's your position on that?
Our position in the union is to do both effectively. We do not believe that we have more universities out there, and also that government should not establish more. We believe that government can establish more if the need arises, and we also understand that that need is already there. If you square up the number of qualified students that passed their West African school certificates and their NECO and whatever exam that they have done in their senior secondary school, and also pass their JAM, then requiring for a place in the universities, and also compare that with the available places or spaces up for grabs for admission. The numbers don't add up. You have a large chunk of these qualified students that year in, year out continuously write JAM to attempt to get in this year. If they don't, they attempt again next year until some of them even give up. So we want to see more spaces that can absorb more qualified students for university education. But at the same time, we also need to see more funding going to both existing ones and the new ones that government is establishing. The issue is some of these universities that have been established, some of their locations will not even allow more student enrollment. Some of their locations are politically motivated. So you see some universities being located in a very remote location that may not really be hospitable for education. So if government will address the issue of citing the universities where they are actually needed and also increasing funding to both existing ones and the new ones, it will go a long way in developing our systems, because on one hand, we have more places for qualified Nigerian students. On the other hand, also we have
Indeed.
adequate universities that can take care of those students' needs.
Very well said. Liaison Officer for the Congress of Nigerian University Academics, Aminu Isyaku, we'd like to thank you for joining us here on Newsday. We appreciate your time and insight. Thank you.